True art is oftentimes not about reinventing the wheel, but if you're really good at it, it's about giving people a new way to view the wheel that's already been there. Giving people a new way to drive the wheel, if you will. What I mean by that is if you take a concept or if you take a setting and you tweak it a little this way and you tweak it a little that way, at a certain point, it does become its own living, breathing idea. The movie that I'm going to talk about today really fleshes out the idea of that concept. I'm Guapo Jim, and today we're going to be breaking down Cowboys and Aliens and why this sci-fi saddle-up is a true hidden gem. So, for those of you who don't know or are too young to remember, Cowboys and Aliens was your typical 2011 summer blockbuster, if that makes any sense. This movie, it took a really unconventional path by giving us a story that was very unexpected for the genre. Based on a comic book, which honestly I didn't even know until I was actually researching this video. The movie itself, it was directed by Jon Favreau, who, if you know films, this guy, he has no problem directing movies about comic book characters. The end result was something very out of left field, but conventional in all of the familiar ways. Basically, Cowboys and Aliens, it begins when this, amnesic, mysterious drifter named Jake Lonergan, he stumbles into this dusty frontier town of Absolution, New Mexico. You gotta remember, this is supposed to be a Western film, so all of this stuff is happening during the Wild Wild West era of the United States. Because he's amnesic and shit and he's got no memory of his past, he also has this very futuristic device strapped onto his arm, like a wrist blaster type shit, not necessarily like a Ben 10 type thing. But his arrival in this town, it puts everyone on red alert, and that does include the town's very hard-willed, I guess you could say to Jake, they have like an adversarial oppositional relationship, but that leader, his name is Colonel Dollarhide. Personal rivalries, and you've got frontier disputes with neighboring indigenous tribes. All of that stuff in the town, which is popping off, it really takes a back seat shortly after Jake gets there, because around that time, these guys literally start seeing UFOs in the sky, and at that point they realize, oh shit, this town is gonna get invaded by aliens. Like, this isn't just some regular Earth shit. The town of Absolution, at that point, they are used to battling outlaws and harsh landscapes, all that stuff, but they literally now have to deal with literal aliens. Like, this is an enemy that's got futuristic tech that's not from our world. Like, the type of shit that these guys are on, these are country bumpkins and, slack-jawed yokels. What the hell? How are they gonna compete? But with that being said, all of the people in this town, they all have to come together and put aside all of their differences to fight the common threat. And in all of this going on, they obviously really dive into Jake's past, and you kind of realize why he's amnesic and he doesn't remember anything. Plus, why he's got the wrist blaster on his wrist. Like, that type of shit, especially in what they're going through, it does come in handy. You'll see what I'm talking about if you watch the film. Hey, what's guan and slime? If you're watching this, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna assume that you're a fan of more unorthodox sci-fi films. If that's the case, Chronicle would be your shit. I actually made a video about that movie and I've left the link in the description below. You should go ahead and check that out still. I also want to add, this is a small channel, and if you do want to support Guapo Jim Ministries, I'm going to need you to like this video, subscribe, comment, share, all that YouTube algorithm shit. All support is super appreciated. Y'all are the real MVPs. Let's go, baby. From a production standpoint, the story about this movie and its conception, it's actually pretty interesting. The concept itself, it was formalized and it was shopped around to different studios while the graphic novel was being written and published. after the comic did come out and was published and stuff like that, one of the studios bought the rights to the script and production on it began. So you got to remember when this came out, and I shouldn't say when it came out, like it just had those names attached, period. But I mean, Spielberg was producing this, you had Daniel Craig, you had Harrison Ford, loads of other people. And the studio, when this came out, they were really like, yo, we got one here, like people are gonna eat this shit up, whatever, whatever, whatever. Unfortunately, critics and the audience as a whole, they really weren't fucking with it. A lot of critics, they said that there were far too many tonal shifts in this movie, and they really felt like the whole idea of what they were trying to portray, it just didn't land. Not even counting all of the names and, as I said, people that were attached to this film, it cost a pretty penny, with some reports saying that it costed upwards of $163 million. Because of its really underwhelming box office run, they did say this movie, I'm not gonna lie, like it was what the people call a, how do I say this? A box office explosive, because I don't want to say the B word. And yeah, it lost like 75 milli. Like I'm telling you, it was really bad. At the time of writing this, there have been zero word on any potential sequels. And honestly, if you ask me, it does seem like the studio is just trying to forget that this ever happened. If you do ever want to watch this film and check it out for yourself, you can find it today streaming on Apple Plus TV and on Amazon Prime Video. All in all, I always loved the concept or just the idea of what this film is. If you've ever seen this channel, y'all niggas know that I love me some juxtaposition. I love it. And if this movie wasn't called Cowboys and Aliens, you literally could have called it Juxtaposition, the movie. I'll be the first person to admit maybe there's a little bit of bias there, but I always liked Jon Favreau as a filmmaker. Like, I will also admit as well, I never watched The Mandalorian, never watched one episode. I never watched The Lion King. I will say that I fuck with Jon Favreau in Rudy. He was sick in that movie. He was a sick youth in that film. But I like him as a filmmaker too. And this movie, it checks off a lot of the boxes. It really resonates with a lot of the things that I like in him and a lot of his sensibilities in that regard. I do also feel like the concept of this movie, it really is what sells it. And I mean that just in the sense to say, like, if I was to tell you and just say the words Cowboys and Aliens, and what would you think of? This movie, it does deliver on those two concepts really well, and it does it in a way that feels smooth and mostly organic. Not necessarily unclunky, if you will, but mostly organic. Even as a film, I will admit, like, this movie, it was enjoyable. It was light. It's a great way to escape for a few hours, you know? I'll be completely honest, I can understand why this movie, when it came out, it wasn't revered or it didn't win any awards or anything like that, but I'd also be lying to say that it wasn't satisfying overall. It was enjoyable, and it's not something that you'll regret watching, if that makes sense. Anyway, you guys know me, and I'm all about trying to put you guys onto some next shit. And I just wanted to let you guys know why Cowboys and Aliens isn't some, again, forgotten relic, some movie left to the annals of history, but why it's a true hidden gem. Thank you, thank you, thank you if you've made it this far. If you're a fan of this type of content, I'll need you to like, subscribe, and comment down below on which other shows or movies you guys think were true hidden gems. Stay safe. Later days.